This is not a book about success tricks. This is a book about who you become before success ever arrives. If your life feels stuck, chaotic, or reactive, it is not because of bad luck. It is because of bad habits. Every outcome you have right now is a result of how you think, how you decide, and how you act daily. Highly effective people are not born different. They train themselves to think differently, act deliberately, and live by principles instead of emotions. In the next hour, you will learn the habits that separate people who react from people who lead, and once you see them, you will never be able to unsee them. Chapter 1. Stop reacting, start taking control. Most people believe they are living their own lives, but they are not. They are reacting. Reacting to people. Reacting to circumstances. Reacting to moods, pressure, criticism, praise, fear, and fatigue. And the brutal truth is this: a reactive life will never become an effective life. If you wake up already stressed, already annoyed, already overwhelmed, you are not in control. If your behavior changes depending on who you talk to, how people treat you, or what goes wrong, you are not in control. If your emotions decide your actions, then your emotions own you. Highly effective people live by one principle that changes everything. Between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a space, and inside that space is your power. Most people never enter that space. They jump straight from stimulus to reaction. Someone disrespects them and they explode. Something goes wrong and they complain. Plans fail and they quit. Pressure rises and they panic. This is not personality. This is programming. From childhood, society trains people to believe that made me angry, you forced me to react, I had no choice, but that is a lie. You always have a choice, and the moment you accept that truth, your life changes. Being proactive does not mean being aggressive, it does not mean controlling others, it means controlling yourself. It means you stop handing your inner peace to external chaos, you stop letting random events decide your mood, your focus, and your future. Reactive people ask, why is this happening to me? Who is to blame? Why are people like this? Effective people ask, what is required of me right now? What is within my control? How do I respond with discipline instead of emotion? This is the first habit, because without it, no other habit works. You cannot set goals if your mood changes daily, you cannot manage time if stress manages you, and you cannot build relationships if ego reacts before understanding. Life will still be unfair, people will still disappoint you, and circumstances will still be unpredictable. But effective people do not outsource their behavior to chaos. They pause, they think, and they choose. That pause, small as it is the dividing line between failure and growth. When something triggers you, that is your moment of training, not when things are easy, but when they are difficult. You don't grow by reacting better, you grow by reacting less. Stop saying, that's just how I am, I can't help it, or anyone would react like that. Because those sentences keep you small, replace them with, I choose my response, I control my actions, and I act based on values, not impulses. This shift alone reduces anxiety, increases clarity, strengthens confidence, and builds self-respect. Because every time you respond intentionally, you prove something to yourself, you are in control. Control is not about dominance, control is about discipline. You cannot control what people do, you cannot control outcomes, and you cannot control the past. But you can always control your response, your effort, your attitude, and your next decision. That is where power lives. Highly effective people build their lives from the inside out. They do not wait for motivation, permission, or perfect conditions. They decide, and once you stop reacting, you unlock the next level of growth. Because now, instead of blaming circumstances, you begin to take responsibility. You mastered the pause. You reclaimed your response. And now it is time to talk about the source of real power, Chapter 2. Responsibility is power, not pressure. Most people think responsibility is a burden, a weight that limits freedom, a set of demands that drains energy. But highly effective people understand the brutal truth. Responsibility is not pressure, it is power. And the moment you claim it, your life changes. Taking responsibility means owning your choices, your actions, and your outcomes, regardless of circumstances, people, or luck. It means stopping the endless cycle of blame and excuses that keeps most people trapped in mediocrity. Excuses sound familiar. It's not my fault. I had no choice. If only circumstances were different. But those words are chains that hand control of your life to external forces. The second you stop blaming, the second you say, I am the author of my life, you reclaim control, and that is the first step toward true effectiveness. Responsibility is power because it allows you to decide your actions instead of reacting, to shape your results instead of waiting for fate, and to focus on what you can change rather than wasting energy on what you cannot. Real-world examples are everywhere. One employee complains about a demanding boss and stagnates, another recognizes the challenge, adapts, exceeds expectations, and earns promotion. Both faced the same circumstances, but only one claimed responsibility. Transformation comes not from wishing circumstances were better, but from deciding to act despite them. It comes from seeing obstacles as opportunities, setbacks as lessons, and criticism as feedback. Highly effective people practice responsibility daily. Starting small, they respond promptly, follow through on promises, own mistakes immediately, and refuse to let failure define them. They understand that blame diminishes power, action creates it. And the faster you adopt this mindset, the faster your life accelerates. Stop outsourcing your energy to excuses. Stop seeking permission to act, and stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. Because nothing in life ever is perfect, power lies in what you do with what you have, right now, in this moment. Discipline and ownership go hand in hand. The more responsible you become, the more freedom, clarity, and influence you gain, because responsibility is not a weight, it is a lever, and the harder you pull, the more your life lifts. Remember, claiming responsibility does not mean controlling others. It means controlling yourself, mastering your choices, and refusing to be a victim of circumstances or emotions. Every time you act deliberately instead of reactively, you expand your personal power, strengthen your character, and move closer to effectiveness. This habit is critical because without it, no other habit can function fully. Proactivity without responsibility is hollow, goals without accountability fail, and relationships without ownership crumble. Highly effective people do not say, I could have, I should have, I would have. They say, I will, I decide, I act. And once you embrace responsibility as power, you see every challenge as a test, every setback as a training ground, and every success as a result of deliberate action rather than chance. You claimed your power, you stopped surrendering it to circumstances, and now it's time to define your direction and live deliberately. Chapter 3. If you don't decide your life, someone else will. Most people drift through life reacting to what happens, allowing other people, circumstances, and fleeting emotions to dictate their path, but highly effective people understand the brutal truth. If you do not define your life, someone else will, and every decision you avoid is a decision surrendered to others. Drift is dangerous because it is invisible. Day after day, small compromises accumulate, and before you realize it, your life belongs to someone else's priorities, goals, and expectations. Parents, bosses, social norms, friends, and media all exert subtle pressure, shaping your thoughts and behaviors, and if you never pause to reflect and decide for yourself, you become a puppet, living out someone else's script while wondering why you feel unfulfilled. The transformative principle here is clarity. Highly effective people begin with the end in mind. They know what they want, what they value, and what they will stand for. And they let those principles guide every action, every choice, and every decision. Stop waiting for permission, stop waiting for conditions to be perfect, and stop assuming life will simply hand you direction. Instead, define it deliberately. Real-world examples are everywhere. One professional drifts from job to job, career dictated by market trends and external expectations, while another outlines their values, sets goals aligned with them, and shapes opportunities to serve their mission, achieving success on their own terms. Transformation comes when you decide your destination before reacting to circumstances. When you write your personal constitution and let it guide your choices, and when you refuse to let fear, doubt, or social pressure determine your direction. Every time you make a conscious choice, you reclaim authority over your life. Every time you fail to decide, you hand it away, incrementally losing your freedom, your focus, and your power. Highly effective people also understand that decision-making is not a one-time act. It is a daily, relentless practice of evaluating, choosing, and acting in alignment with their vision. You cannot drift and arrive, you cannot react and lead, you cannot postpone decisions and remain empowered. The harsh truth is simple. If you do not decide your life, someone else will, and you will always wonder why you feel powerless, frustrated, or unfulfilled. Stop letting inertia, fear, or other people dictate your path. Take a pen, write your principles, outline your vision, and act with clarity, courage, and consistency. You claimed responsibility. You are no longer reactive. And now you must decide your course with intention, because the moment you define your life, everything else aligns. You claimed your direction, you refused to drift. And now it's time to anchor your life in what matters most. Values are the invisible GPS of your life. Most people live without a clear sense of values, reacting to what feels good, popular, or urgent, but highly effective people understand the brutal truth. Values are the invisible GPS of your life, and without them, you will wander aimlessly, wasting time, energy, and potential. Values define what matters most, guide your decisions, and serve as the foundation for consistency, integrity, and long-term success. Yet most people chase short-term pleasures, trends, or approval, never pausing to ask, what do I truly stand for? Transformation begins the moment you articulate your core values, write them down, and let them dictate your priorities, decisions, and actions. This is the difference between living reactively and living deliberately. Stop letting emotions, social pressure, or fleeting desires determine your path. Instead, let your values determine your behavior, your goals, and your relationships. Real-world examples illustrate this principle. One person accepts every opportunity, relationship, or task, hoping for approval or convenience, and ends up scattered, unfulfilled, and exhausted, while another person identifies their guiding principles, declines what doesn't align, and focuses relentlessly on what matters most, producing extraordinary results and a sense of purpose that is unshakable. Highly effective people also understand that values are not abstract, they are actionable. They review choices daily, measure their behavior against their principles, and adjust when misalignment occurs. This constant alignment ensures that when challenges arise, decisions are clear, responses are deliberate, and priorities remain steady. Because values act as a compass in chaos, a foundation in uncertainty, and a filter for distractions. Transformation occurs when you stop reacting to every external influence and start acting according to your internal GPS. Every time you choose your principles over convenience, every time you act in alignment rather than emotion, you strengthen your character, your confidence, and your control over your life. Stop drifting toward approval, distraction, or temporary satisfaction, and start using your values as a decision-making framework that guides every aspect of your life, your work, your relationships, your goals, and your habits. Once you understand that values are not optional, that they are the invisible GPS ensuring you arrive at the life you desire, you will see why clarity and consistency matter more than motivation or circumstance. You mastered the awareness of your guiding principles. You refused to let your life be dictated by whims. And now it's time to turn those values into disciplined action. Chapter 5. Busy is not effective. Priorities are. Most people mistake activity for achievement, filling their days with tasks, meetings, notifications, and distractions. But highly effective people understand the brutal truth: busy is not effective, priorities are. And unless you consciously distinguish between what is urgent and what is truly important, you will spin your wheels, exhaust yourself, and accomplish very little that matters. Transformation begins when you stop glorifying busyness, stop reacting to every demand, and start asking, does this serve my highest purpose? Highly effective people identify their highest value activities, the work, relationships, and decisions that move them closer to their goals, and ruthlessly allocate time and energy to those, while saying no to everything that does not align. Stop confusing effort with results, stop filling calendars with noise, and start focusing on what produces disproportionate impact. The difference between success and mediocrity is rarely in working harder, but in working on the right things. Real-world examples show the power of prioritization. One entrepreneur works 16-hour days chasing emails, notifications, and minor tasks, yet achieves minimal growth, while another focuses only on key projects, high-value clients, and strategic actions, and produces exponential results in far less time. Highly effective people also understand the discipline of planning, breaking down goals into daily priorities, reviewing progress constantly, and adjusting as necessary, because clarity of purpose prevents drift, reduces stress, and accelerates results. Transformation occurs when you stop reacting to urgent but unimportant demands and start acting according to your long-term vision. Every time you choose priority over convenience, alignment over distraction, you reinforce control over your life and magnify your impact. Stop glorifying busyness. Stop measuring productivity by activity alone, and start defining your day based on what truly moves the needle in your work, relationships, and personal growth. Once you internalize this, you will see that effectiveness is not measured by hours spent but by value created, and that discipline in prioritization is a superpower few exercise consistently. You mastered the understanding of importance over urgency, you stopped letting chaos dictate your actions, and now it's time to extend your influence through collaboration and long-term impact. Chapter 6. Win-win is a mindset, not a strategy. Most people approach life and business with a scarcity mindset, believing that for someone to win, someone else must lose. But highly effective people understand the brutal truth: win-win is not a tactic or a clever negotiation trick. It is a mindset, a principle, and a way of being, and unless you adopt it, your relationships, influence, and long-term success will always be limited. Transformation begins the moment you stop thinking in zero-sum terms. Stop competing for validation or advantage at every turn, and start seeking solutions that create value for all parties involved. Win-win thinkers refuse to dominate, manipulate, or compromise their integrity for short-term gain. Instead, they focus on mutual benefit, fairness, and sustainable outcomes, knowing that trust and collaboration compound over time. Stop chasing victories at the expense of others, stop settling for outcomes that leave resentment behind, and start asking, how can this be better for everyone involved? Real-world examples are clear. A manager who hoards credit or pits employees against each other breeds toxicity, mistrust, and eventual failure, while a leader who seeks collaborative solutions, shares recognition, and nurtures growth produces loyalty, innovation, and exponential results. Highly effective people also understand that win-win requires courage, patience, and emotional intelligence. It is not easy to listen, negotiate, and create agreements that satisfy all parties, but the reward is influence, respect, and relationships that stand the test of time. Transformation occurs when you stop viewing others as obstacles and start viewing them as partners, when you refuse to let ego dictate your actions, and when you commit to integrity and fairness even when it is inconvenient. Stop thinking only of your own gain, stop allowing fear or pride to dominate interactions, and start cultivating a mindset that naturally generates trust, reciprocity, and cooperation. Once you internalize win-win thinking as a principle, you will notice a shift. Doors open, opportunities multiply, and your influence grows, because people instinctively respond to fairness and integrity. You embraced collaboration over competition, you replaced ego with principle, and now it's time to master the most powerful skill in human interaction. Chapter 7. Seek to understand before you demand to be understood. Most people think communication is about expressing their point, defending their position, or convincing others, but highly effective people understand the brutal truth. Listening to understand is more powerful than speaking to be understood, and unless you master this skill, your influence, relationships, and results will always be limited. Transformation begins the moment you stop preparing your response while someone else is talking. Stop thinking about how to defend yourself and start focusing fully on understanding the other person's perspective, feelings, and needs. Stop interrupting, stop judging, and stop assuming you know what they are thinking. Instead, listen actively, ask clarifying questions, and immerse yourself in empathy. Because influence and trust are built through understanding, not argument. Real-world examples are everywhere. A manager who listens superficially fails to inspire or motivate. A partner who dismisses concerns creates resentment. But a person who truly listens creates connection, identifies hidden opportunities, and solves conflicts before they escalate. Highly effective people also understand that seeking to understand first does not mean giving up your perspective or surrendering your goals. It means creating a space where collaboration, insight, and respect can thrive. Transformation occurs when you stop seeing communication as a battlefield and start seeing it as a bridge. When you replace defensiveness with curiosity, and when you commit to connecting with others before asserting your viewpoint. Stop demanding attention, stop forcing agreement, and start cultivating understanding. Because clarity, influence, and resolution follow empathy. Every time you choose to understand first, you reduce conflict, gain perspective, and multiply the effectiveness of every interaction, and over time, this habit compounds into stronger relationships, greater influence, and unparalleled results. You mastered listening before speaking, you replaced reaction with empathy, and now it's time to expand your impact through trust and credibility. Chapter 8. Influence comes from trust, not authority. Most people believe influence comes from position, title, or authority, but highly effective people understand the brutal truth: trust, not authority, is the currency of influence. And unless you cultivate it, your power to lead, persuade, and inspire will always be superficial and short-lived. Transformation begins the moment you stop relying on your credentials, stop demanding compliance, and start building credibility through consistent words, actions, and integrity, because people follow character before they follow titles. Stop using fear, intimidation, or coercion to get results, and start demonstrating reliability, competence, empathy, and fairness, because trust multiplies influence exponentially, while authority without trust breeds resistance, resentment, and rebellion. Real-world examples are everywhere. A manager who shouts, threatens, or micromanages may get temporary results. But a leader who consistently honors commitments, communicates openly, and treats people with respect creates loyalty, discretionary effort, and high-performing teams that sustain success over the long term. Highly effective people also understand that trust is fragile and cumulative. Every broken promise, dishonest word, or inconsistent action erodes it, while consistent integrity strengthens it, creating a foundation upon which influence naturally grows. Transformation occurs when you stop thinking affluence as control and start seeing it as responsibility. When you choose character over convenience, and when you act in ways that earn respect and credibility every single day. Stop expecting others to obey because of your title. Stop assuming authority guarantees followership, and start investing in relationships, consistency, and integrity. Because influence without trust is hollow, and trust without action is invisible. Every time you prioritize trust over authority, you amplify your impact, deepen your connections, and create sustainable results that no position alone could achieve. You mastered the principle that influence grows from credibility, not command. You replaced fear and force with respect and consistency. And now it's time to multiply your impact through collaboration and creative synergy. Chapter 9. Alone you survive, together you multiply. Most people believe success is an individual achievement, that working harder, outsmarting others, or going it alone is enough. But highly effective people understand the brutal truth. Alone you survive, but together you multiply. And unless you learn to leverage collaboration, synergy, and diverse perspectives, your potential will always be limited. Transformation begins the moment you stop believing you must do everything yourself, stop hoarding credit, and start seeking partnerships, alliances, and cooperation that create exponential results. Stop underestimating the power of combining strengths. Stop ignoring the ideas of others and start recognizing that the most creative, innovative, and impactful solutions emerge when minds and efforts unite around a common purpose. Real-world examples are everywhere. A solo entrepreneur may survive and sustain, but a visionary team, working in alignment with complementary skills, multiplies revenue, creativity, and influence far beyond any individual effort. Highly effective people also understand that synergy is not compromise, it is creative collaboration, listening actively, respecting differences, integrating strengths, and co-creating solutions that could not exist otherwise. Transformation occurs when you stop allowing ego, pride, or fear to dominate interactions and start investing in relationships that generate mutual growth, accountability, and resilience. Stop competing against potential allies, stop isolating yourself in pursuit of control, and start embracing interdependence. Because the long-term winners are those who combine efforts, amplify strengths, and create outcomes no single person could achieve. Every time you prioritize collaboration over isolation, every time you seek to multiply impact rather than merely add effort, you expand your influence, effectiveness, and reach. You mastered the principle that strength is amplified in collaboration. You replaced self-centered action with co-creation, and now it's time to ensure your personal growth is sustainable and enduring. Chapter 10. Sharpen the tool or become the tool. Most people work hard, push themselves, and chase goals relentlessly, but highly effective people understand the brutal truth: if you do not continually sharpen the tool, your mind, body, emotions, and spirit, you will become the tool, dull, exhausted, and ineffective, and unless you commit to consistent renewal, all effort, achievement, and success will eventually stall. Transformation begins the moment you stop assuming that effort alone is enough, stop ignoring personal growth, and start investing in yourself with the same intensity you invest in work or others. Stop neglecting physical health, stop skipping mental development, stop avoiding emotional reflection, and start dedicating time to exercise, reading, mindfulness, skill building, and deep rest, because sustainable performance requires a tool that is sharp, aligned, and resilient. Real-world examples are everywhere. An employee who works non-stop without reflection or skill development burns out and produces diminishing results, while a leader who disciplines body, mind, and character consistently innovates, leads effectively, and multiplies impact over the long term. Highly effective people understand that sharpening the tool is not optional, it is a daily deliberate practice of renewal, self-assessment, and improvement, ensuring that effort translates into lasting results rather than temporary motion. Transformation occurs when you stop letting busyness, ego, or distraction dominate your life and start cultivating disciplines that refresh, strengthen, and elevate your capabilities, because the sharper your tool, the more precise, effective, and meaningful your actions become. Stop waiting for motivation or perfect conditions to grow, stop believing that success can be sustained without maintenance, and start intentionally renewing your mental clarity, physical vitality, emotional intelligence, and spiritual alignment, because each of these dimensions amplifies your impact, influence, and effectiveness. Every time you invest in yourself, every time you practice, read, reflect, or strengthen, you sharpen the tool and increase your capacity to achieve extraordinary results. You mastered collaboration, multiplied your influence, and now, with a sharp, aligned, and resilient tool, you are ready to apply every habit deliberately and powerfully in your life. You committed to growth, reclaimed control, prioritized what matters, mastered relationships, and renewed yourself, and now it's time to take all these habits and live deliberately, consistently, and ruthlessly in pursuit of your highest potential. Effectiveness is not a personality trait. It is a daily practice. Every habit you heard today is a choice. made again and again, especially when it's uncomfortable. You don't need motivation. You need standards. You don't need more time. You need better priorities. And you don't need to change everything. You need to start with one habit. Today, decide who you are going to be before life decides for you. Choose responsibility over excuses. Choose discipline over drift. And when this audiobook ends, don't just feel inspired, act. Because effective people don't listen more. They live differently.